everybody. I got the judge back on the line. Once again, I've been having technical difficulties. Thank you for bearing with me. Judge, please, could you share the meaning of both homophobia and heterophobia, and in context to history?
Phobia is a fear of something. Straight people don't fear homosexual people, but they find what homosexuals do distasteful. For hundreds, thousands, etc. of years, homosexual people have had good cause to fear straight people. They got lynched, bruised, murdered, hung, ostracized, fired, put in prison. We still have homosexuals who deeply fear what the straight world will do. That's why they're still in the closet.
Yes.
Now, for a long time, there has been a proper word called heterophobia, because it was the fear homosexuals had of straight people. But homophobia is a creation of the last 4 or 5 years. It's representative of a propaganda device where you flip the script. So now straight folk are supposed to be afraid of gay folk and have a phobia about it. Well, let's take another one, phobia, arachnophobia. That's a fear of spiders. Most people find them distasteful, but even a lot of those who find them distasteful aren't afraid of them. They'll go squash them, get the bug spray, or if they're being particularly benevolent, get a paper towel, gather them up and throw them outside to eat the bugs out in the yard.
Correct.
It doesn't mean you're afraid of them. I don't like standing on a precipice, but I'm not afraid of it, so I don't have a fear of heights. I feel restricted if I'm enclosed in something, but I do not have claustrophobia. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So we do not like gays in terms of what they do. We know some of them. Hell, we got to work with a lot of them.
They're in our families.
That doesn't mean you have a fear of them. See,
exactly.
They have caused the corruption of this word fear because they think in terms of fear. Like, for example, assault. If you look at damn near every statute in the country, it says assault can be some action that causes another person to fear that they are about to be attacked or something like that, right?
Correct.
It used to not be fear because people were presumed to be brave. It was apprehensive. Let me explain the difference. You've got a 245-pound all-pro NFL linebacker, and there is a frail 95-year-old woman about to slap him. He's not afraid of being slapped because he knows he can't be hurt, but he's apprehensive that he'll be slapped. You see the difference?
Yes.
So they have overused this word fear, like hero. See, they have done this deliberately. God, what a hero. It was 3 seconds left in the game, and he hit a 3-point shot from so-and-so, and his team wins by 1. That was so heroic. That's not heroic.
Exactly.
He's doing a game. People play that for recreation, and he's going to college, or he's getting paid for it in the pros. That's not putting your life on the line. That's not being a hero.
Right.
They talked about, and I hate to say this, because my son was in the Navy, but they had these people, the destroyer captain was Rex, and what he did with his ship and the coal, and it got attacked by some radicals in a power boat, blown up, and a number of American sailors got killed. Well, they used to just call that being sad sack, being unlucky, being in the head of the latrine at the time the shell went off and you got done in. You weren't a hero, but now we call them a hero.
On the toilet.
We've corrupted these terms, and we have also corrupted this term fear. And you see, the 10 students were terrified, screaming as they ran out. They weren't screaming, they were yelling. There's a difference.
Right.
You substitute scream for yell. Scream implies fear. The student wasn't apprehensive, he was fearful. The whole context has been switched over to some people that are afraid. And see, a lot of these people, not all of them, that go into that Skittles thing, they are fearful people.
Right.
They're afraid that they'll fail. They're afraid of discovery. They are afraid of the heterosexual crowd that's normal, and they are suffering from a handicap.
Right.
It's like being born blind or being Stevie Wonder or Ray Charles, it's a handicap, but you overcome it.
Right.
See, they're born with the handicap, but they are doing the equivalent of trying to make everybody else blind with them.
And that's the issue. If they didn't have to groom young people or recruit desperate people for their deviant acts, there'd be no issue. There really wouldn't, and because that'd just be that person living their lives. But if they're going to sit there and indoctrinate, we're going to talk about gay contributions to the nation. Come on. That's where we have to draw the line. Hell, we even have a report today of a walrus sinking a naval vessel protecting its cubs. But here as humans, no, we'll just send our kids to school. Judge, we'll figure it out in your courtroom later on when all this comes down.
Yeah, well, it's like this. If you have to a wheelchair, you a ramp, but don't pass off a solution where you would require everybody else to ride in a wheelchair. You want to recruit these children so they can be in a wheelchair like you, because what you're about, it ain't healthy.
Exactly.
Think about this. Guys have enough problems as it is dealing with women because, why baby you hanging around all those guys like that? What you up to? I ain't got nothing to do. Daddy, I ain't nothing up to nothing. Well, why you always be hanging with these dudes? What you got going on.
Right.
Okay. If she's with her friend girls, it's all right. If you're with your guy friends, it's all right. But can you see what kind of chaos you are setting up? If the guys with the guys are getting jealous of the guy being with the guys? Or the girls are jealous of the girl being with the girls. It's crazy.
And then you mix the transgender in that mix as well.
Yeah, and then you with what you don't know what it is,
It's like a jack in a box. Ding, 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 ding. No.
See, like, for example, I know you've been messing around on me. I'm not. You're supposed to believe me because I said I'm not. Okay, fine. But then I'm a girl. You're supposed to believe me because I said I was a girl. Now, if you take it home, you finally got a dick.
Oh. And how could you believe anything else? Oh, I'm just going to the liquor store, the grocery store. How do you know? You can't be honest about who you are, what you are. So therefore, everything else has to be suspect.
Yeah.
But they don't see it like that. They don't see it like that because they are entitled for this deceit. Because they identify as whatever. Let's just say someone identified as Porky Pig. And every time they walk up to you, they go into that babbling. But you're supposed to sit there and tolerate that. You're supposed to condone that. Stop acting that way. You're not Porky the Pig. You're whoever you are. This is what I'm saying is that just by us having to go down this road, just by us having to talk about people like Fallon Fox, the transgender that hit the girl so hard, cracked her damn skull. We have to talk about boys and girls beating people out of scholarship money that will actually have an economic impact on these women's lives because they couldn't get a degree from this university. They had to go to a junior college. All these things have real life issues and real life consequences that no one seems to give a damn. As long as some actor comes out, oh no, it's all good. I showed training love. Eddie Murphy's in this crew and all this blah, blah, blah. That doesn't cut it because obviously if it was such a good thing, it was such a pure and righteous and noble thing, how come we haven't had a first man of any kingdom? There's never been, name me one kingdom where it was a dude and his chick is another dude. Just one. Just one kingdom.
And you see that in the White House representing the United States of America.
Yeah, oh, well, you're talking about Miss Trump. Yeah, Eastern.
No, I'm just talking about. Can you see?
Oh no! I cannot see that. I cannot see that.
I mean, but can you see the first lady having a first lady or a president having a first lady?
That'd just be too much. But I see it coming. I definitely see it coming. That's definitely on the agenda for the Skittle political wing of the agenda. But it's not right, Judge. It's not right because they're at the end of the day, like I said, and it was crystal clear to me this weekend. We are only here for a finite period of time. We have to be in a position to pass the football of life on to another generation. None of us is that great to where we should be immortalized for this is the epitome of humanity. No, we're constantly evolving, and rightfully so. We should always grab more knowledge and base our behavior upon the applicable knowledge that we have at our base. And if we start lying to ourselves about the meaning of words, we start lying to ourselves about the consequences of behavior, we're only setting ourselves up for failure.
There you go.
And that's what I want people to take away. Not that, once again, I'm not bashing anybody's lifestyle. I'm not saying that people should be put on trains and sent to internment camps or re-education camps. No. I'm not saying none of that. But I am saying it is also wrong to try to use this subculture behavior and try to pass it off as it is the norm. It's not normal for two men to be chilling up in the house trying to play house. It's not normal for two chicks to try to be, Rosie the Riveter, with all kinds of machines. These things are things that only people who are not putting in real work, who are not focused on, no, what I mean by putting in real work, not having a job. There's a difference. Not having a job or having a job is work. But I'm talking about real work as far as the human family's concerned. And real work is providing a way and means for families to produce children that can produce children. That's the work I'm speaking on. And however you want to look at it, when you engage in transgenderism, when you engage in bisexual, no, you can kind of maybe get lucky in bisexual, maybe. Homosexuality, you're not going to produce a child ever unless you use artificial scientific means. I already can see the comments. Well, what about, but that will only work for females. That would not necessarily work for males. They would have to conscript a female. But that goes back to the root. We always need the man and the woman until we get to a scientific place to where we can put people in incubation bags, which I'm going to pose this legal question to you, Judge. If we could make it to where we had a viable human vagina outside the female body, and a young lady comes up pregnant, for whatever reasons, no judging on that, could we not somehow take it and be like, okay, you're going to go into the the outpatient procedure, and we're going to pull out the embryo, put it in the bag, and when the baby's born, you and the man are going to have to pay child support. And because you wanted to abort the baby, we know that you don't want the baby. We're going to place this baby in foster care or adopt it out. Could that be a legal viability?
Well, you don't have to go that far. They theoretically now can clone humans. I remember 50 years ago, some of these feminists were just so gleeful at the thought that one day people could be cloned so you would not need men. Now, that it's really evolution, and the man's, genetic engineering, but it's another thing. But I've heard them recently just get gleeful about getting rid of men by having cloning.
That's horrible.
And they don't get it. See, we've had war between men and women since we've been here. But we also have fun, men and women, with each other.
Exactly.
They don't get it, so they want to bash it and banish it. It's not cool.
So you're talking about Now let's just put this in like scientific perspective or science fiction almost at this point, that they like a cabal of elite homosexuals make a cloning facilities and only the chosen ones are allowed to be cloned. You know what I mean? I guess the heterosexual would be like the peasant class used for mining operations or maybe some sort of military soldier experiment. That would be a true Orwellian nightmare, like a medical tyrannical dystopia.
Well, I heard a professor one time who was talking about the episode. It boils down to this. Ugly people don't like the idea that they won't have any descendants and only good-looking people will be around if they get to choose. So what the devil? Would you, if you had to come back, want to be coming back when everybody look good? It's selfish.
Selfish. They want to pass those ugly ass genes down because they got this. It's a DNA situation called CRISPR, where they can actually go in and pull out the Asians or China's using, and they're the ones who made the babies that are apparently HIV resistant. It's sort of like we make GMO food, now we're making GMO people. But is there any type of ethical like dangers into not letting nature take its evolutionary course?
We're getting ready to go out again.
Oh, are we? Well, I will. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay. Is there any danger of us messing around with DNA and tampering with it to such an extent that, isn't there like some sort of ethical concerns that perhaps we should let nature take its course on that? Let men and women come together?
Here's what the problem is. If you don't, once an organism arrives at the point of having a civilization like we have, evolution doesn't occur anymore, not evolving. What usually happens is stuff devolves. In other words, it deteriorates because there's nothing selecting for the advantageous characteristics.
Wow.
The typical selected person successful person in America and in most of the rest of the world is not going to have a whole bunch of babies. They'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's it. But the person that's on Section 8 with 14 kids, 11 different baby daddies, by Darwinian theory, that's the most successful. So you'll have more who have not finished school, have low IQs, don't look good, and they've got a whole bunch of babies who have a whole bunch of babies, and pretty soon on the playing field, most of the players are going to be descendants of that Section 8 situation. I'm just using that as a harsh thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Some people are on Section 8, but I've run into some where essentially it's 5 generations of everybody in the 5 generations has been the equivalent. That's not cool.
Man, and
it's
please,
it's not something where you start breeding to it where we have a problem in our communities because of it. And people just don't understand it if they aren't old enough to have seen it. It's like we had healthy communities, and in this thing with welfare that was designed to help out people who were suffering, but wound up being poisonous. You got people who, I got told I was recruiting for college, for example, and I talked to this one sister, and she says, I've lost my mind if I think she's going to work or go to school. She get her checks. Because the social worker said she had to come speak to us to get her check. And she said, I'm just going to flat and get knocked up and get me a bigger check. There was no concern about being able to provide for these children. It was somebody's going to take care of them, so my job is to have as many as I can to get as big a check as I can.
Right.
So that established a habit that's been cut back on now because people have put caps on how much you can get. So all kinds of nasty things have come about that way. But see, that's why the women look like they do now. And I'm not going to get on somebody, but There are health considerations. If you look like you're going to stroke out or die before you hit 35, me, that's not fine. That you may be a nice person, but I suggest that if you can't do something about it, get a nice attitude, or at least have a pretty face.
There it is.
But the other way is, it's not cool. And you see, you're going to have your genetic engineering because you build up what they call a genetic load. That is the number of harmful mutations that are in the gene codes of the entire breeding population. It's called a genetic load. And that's building up. I remarked years ago, Reader's Digest used to have these stories about this woman had a fatal disease that they cured, and her daughter has the fatal disease, which is cured, and the granddaughter has the same one. Isn't it marvelous? And the granddaughter is here, and her daughter has 7 children who are now her granddaughters, and all of them suffer from the same condition. See,
wow.
So were it not for modern medicine, all of them would be dead. But now, because of modern medicine, you got a bunch of them that are alive and breathing. And this was 50 years ago. So what would happen if you lost temporarily or on a long-term scale modern medicine?
Oh, they'll die out.
Yeah, exactly. But you see, it would be catastrophic because now there's not just one who otherwise would have been dead. There's like 16 of them.
Right. And it exponentially grows.
I mean, it sounds like Adolf Hitler, but the problem is the only rule in this planet's history that is invariable is extinction.
This is where things go to die. Planet Earth.
So
wow.
It's kind of sort of when you create a civilization where evolution does not work because it has no function, it doesn't weed out those who can't make it and reward with more viable offspring on the next generation those who are more successful in coping with their environments. It just says anybody will be fed. We won't let anybody starve or freeze if we can help. So you'll have to have it. And if you want to get past the stage we're in right now, well, humans they only use such and such small percentage of their brains. Yeah, that's true. But you see, that's like anything else in evolution. Sometimes a trait evolves that nothing can be done with until certain other traits evolve.
Correct.
So we don't have the suite of things we need to use this marvelous brain we have.
It's almost like we are downgraded. Like in some way, somehow, we were more advanced on so many levels back in the day.
Okay, now look at this. I suffer from it, but I was 65 years old before it hit me, type 2 diabetes. That wasn't a problem before, but it is now.
Right.
You see, that's becoming a big thing in the population all over the world. That's not good.
Well, it has to be in our food. I mean, I had an episode.
See, no, it's not in your food. Here's the thing. The People's Republic of China, the Chinese, have not a treatment for diabetes type 1 and 2. They have an absolute cure. And you know what it is?
What?
If you go to Hong Kong or Singapore and you got enough money, they'll cure you. What they do is they take an infected bacteria, a genetically altered bacteria, no virus, and they infect you with the virus. The virus grows in your cells, but the virus has the gene code you need, so you would not be a diabetic, either type 1 or type 2. But that doesn't do anything for you. They need fresh stem cells. So they have a lot of abortions in China, so they take the harvested stem cells and they inject you with the stem cells. And what happens is the new DNA that your cells possess can now work on the stem cells, and you become, guess what? You're no longer prone to diabetes, and you cure. So you don't need treatment anymore the rest of your life.
What?
But you see, we can't do it because the religious right says no abortions.
I'm flabbergasted.
So
I don't know what to say.
So
I mean,
that's an example. How much suffering do we put up with in the United States with diabetes, type 1, type 2? When here, these people over here, they got not a treatment, they have a cure for it.
Wow. Well, but hold on now. Purdue Pharma, big pharma in general, makes a lot of money off of glyphosate, metformin, Victoza, and the whole rest of it.
Not as much as you would think. The big money is not made by the major pharmaceutical companies. It's made by the medical insurance companies that have gained control of the entities that make generic drugs.
Oh.
See, the big pharmaceutical companies, they have to run the 5-year field test. They have to have all of the insurance, liability insurance. They have to pay out billions of dollars to do the research and hire the best minds. Once they get it, by law now, the companies that do it generically have only to copy it and don't have to do a field trial and don't have to get it certified. And see, under this affordable health care thing, the Obamacare thing that was actually drafted by Republican Senate Majority Leader Dr. Bill Frist, formerly of Tennessee, whose family started Blue Cross, it says that if you, for example, get a 30-day supply, you pay a full copay, which one medication I have, $462 a month. But if you get a 90-day supply, your copay for the entire 90 days is only $17.
Wow.
Now, why is it so different? Well, that's because the insurance company, if it is one of the Blue Cross, Blue Shield, Medco type, which are all under a big umbrella, and not something like TrueCare, where it is under a general insurance company that does liability, homeowners, auto, and all that other stuff. What happens is they control the generic manufacturer. And if they switch you to a generic, the doctor, if it's a complicated generic or main drug, is going to have to issue you 1 to 3 more prescriptions. Well, if they get a 90-day prescription, which is advantageous to the consumer because instead of $462 per month, he pays $17 for 90 days or 3 months supply. The insurance company gets reimbursed 100% for the cost of the drug. It gets advantage of your copay, and they get your insurance payment. They're making a killing.
Yes.
But we're too stupid to read it, and the press is uninterested. They're too damn dumb and aren't into really getting into inquiring about realities that impact us. They'd rather talk about scandals, play tabloid, because it's easier. So we get shafted all the way around. But we don't know that. If you study it, it's not the major pharmaceuticals. It's not all the insurance companies. It's the medical insurance companies that have gained control of the generic manufacturing process, who rake in an enormous amount of money by what's going on. And they diffuse it because it sounds good for the press, and the press is too damn stupid, ignorant, uninterested in doing what they ought to do for the public because they're deep off into the Skittles thing and whether they can get you to taste the rainbow.
Exactly.
So they pay no attention to it. And we get shafted. And we fall for the easy okie doke, which is it's the medical pharmaceutical companies that are trying to maintain this thing with the disease. See, they got to stop doing that because these pharmaceutical companies, a lot of times, they don't even break even on this stuff.
Wow. But they had to get it and maintain the business model. They have to have some sort of profit.
Because they get grants for research and it advances the state of science. There are some things they get out of some of the products, but a lot of it they don't. Like, when's the last time you got charged by going into Walgreens to get a flu shot?
Haven't. Never gotten
charged. You
charged.
don't, do you?
No.
But somebody is producing the vaccine. Somebody's distributing it, but it's free.
Wow.
Okay? You ever do any Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force stuff or go through boot camp or ROTC, anything like that?
Yeah.
Who paid for your ammunition? Is it the soldier? Does the cop pay for his ammunition? No. Who pays for the ammunition? The taxpayer. Why do you pay for cops' ammunition, pay salaries for cops, pay the soldier his pay in equipment? Because it's for the general good.
Yes.
It's like we used to have a very efficient postal service up until 1974 because it was a public service and people paid for the service. But the Nixon administration switched it over to being a quasi-public private corporation, so they had to break even, and now look at how much it costs you to mail something.
Yeah, what? So Nixon did that in 74. Who benefited from that?
It was just ideological BS.
Oh, God.
I remember my mother. I grew up in Los Angeles. I remember my mother. She was a school teacher. She'd want to have a little cocktail party. When she got ready to go to work she'd get ready to leave at 6:30. She'd drop a postcard in the mail, a bunch of them, with another postcard stapled to the back, RSVP, and she could send it off, and it would get to schools and people's homes in time for them to check off on it, drop it in the mailbox that was 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 yards from their front door. And my mother would get it in the evening mail in time to know who's coming to the cocktail party.
Wow.
Now, just off of a lark, about 10 years ago, some friends, we got together and we carefully noted when we mailed something, and it was taking up to 10 days for a letter to get from one side of LA to the other.
Just that backlog. Or the workers.
Well, yeah, because it's got to turn a profit. And it's not looked at as a public function, even though the Constitution says that Congress shall set up post roads and post offices.
It should have said servers and emails.
1, Section 8.
You know that? Could you imagine if the United States government would actually make United States Facebook, meaning that it's like just like Facebook, except for the government runs it. No censorship. Everything's freedom of speech. They can spy on us. Whatever they're doing, they're already doing it. But could you picture how empowering that would be? Everyone gets free or access to an email. Every household, every house has an email subscription. I know we can get too carried away with it, but do you see that information? Because ultimately what we've been talking about today is information and the way it's been internalized by the citizens, by you, me, and the others. Have we not?
Yeah.
Has this country not lost its place as far as leadership globally in the information field? It's like what has happened is interesting. I remember when I was in college in the 60s, and this is when I was a freshman in the sophomore, and I stayed in the dorms. And all these white boys would be up there, well-to-do white boys, and they were taking business, and they were going to go back and run daddy's business once they learned it from the ground up. And they were all taking oaths to each other. And I heard them do this to destroy the New Deal. To destroy the New Deal.
And that's a bad thing because the New Deal was advantageous to people. Mm-hmm. They didn't realize the reason they had the New Deal was that their beloved Ike Eisenhower, former general, had actually set it up. He had done a survey after World War I at the behest of the War Department to determine where this particular resource was in the country, where this fuel was in the country, where this workforce was in the country, and how to put it together through government coordination. So we didn't run into what happened in World War II, where the biggest economy in the world could not make anything to send over to Europe to fight the war with.
Wow.
So that's why in World War II, the U.S. kicked ass, because it gave the government the ability to coordinate the economics of the country, so it became most effective. That also carried over into non-war situations, and the country prospered. Well, these idiots didn't realize it, so they wanted to tear it down. So they've been steadily chipping away at all of this, and it really didn't get to the final point until Reagan got in, his administration. He's probably too brain dead to take much credit for it, but he was a figurehead, and his administration did some horrible things. We're still suffering from them. So what happened is the New Deal got destroyed. There was a thing that Roosevelt discovered. It's called Keynesian economics. And that was that the truth of the matter is you can't owe yourself money. You can set up a budget, and you can say, I've got X income, and as long as you live within that income, you're cool.
Right.
But you can say, I'm putting X amount of money here for vacation, Y amount of money for the mortgage, Z for putting away for savings, et cetera, et cetera. So if something comes up, you can always say, well, this year we just don't go on vacation. We had something, the house got hit by, a fallen tree, so we have to might as well do renovations. Well, as long as you don't go over your income, you took away from the vacation fund. So you say next year we owe the vacation fund, but basically it's you can't owe yourself money.
Right.
So Keynesian economics worked, and that was the government dumps money into the economy in an appropriate fashion. You put people to work, they pay taxes, which reimburses the government for its outlay, and the government is, in fact, the people. You control inflation vigorously and rigorously, and you allow it to creep up a little bit over, say, a 10-year period. So what happens is you wipe out the people's debt to themselves, and everybody's back on foot because you use the government like the Egyptians did. They would store grain, and when there was famine, the government would dole out grain so people didn't starve.
Right.
It's ancient. But now, under the Reagan administration, you come to a point where they changed the tax code, so Boeing aircraft would literally be paying less in tax dollars than the average American middle-class person. Not percentage, but in actual dollars.
Right.
To make the economy work and for the government to keep functioning, the Reagan administration came up with the dodge of borrowing money from the People's Republic of China.
Wow.
Nixon had normalized relations with China in 1974 again, but the Reagan administration took advantage of that in the 1980s.
Yep.
So they started borrowing trillions of dollars from the Chinese. So right now we can't use Keynesian economics to bail everything out of this mess that it's gotten into because we owe somebody. And see, when 2007 hit and the first 25-year interest payment became due, we couldn't pay it because, guess what? The U.S. couldn't afford to pay it. So the Chinese said, well, we can bend you over if you want soap, Vaseline, KY, or dry. So our solution throughout the Obama administration and for the last year of the W. Bush administration was to borrow more money from the Chinese.
Right.
Now, you hear all of this stuff, Wall Street is soaring, but you see Wall Street is no longer representative of what the people get. It's a gambling casino.
That it is.
If you can generate volatility, which means the stocks go up and down rapidly, and you can predict it, you can make a hell of a lot of money, but it doesn't have a damn thing to do with the fallout to the people. In fact, right now, an upscale a share of stock might generate 38 cents as a dividend. Say Exxon, which is literal. You pay 150, 160 sometimes if you can get Exxon stock, if you can find it when there is a down market. You should buy if you're going to do it. 100 years ago, 110 years ago, when it was Standard Oil that Rockefeller set up, you could buy a share of stock for $15.60 a share, and it paid you a dividend of $2.50 on the year. So in other words, you put money in this and you made money, but you could live off of the dividend income.
Right.
You can't do that off 58 cents a share.
Wow.
But you see, what you can do is use it as collateral security. You can buy, sell, trade, and you can make a fortune if you have the correct kind of computers and access directly to the floor, so you don't have to go through a broker.
Wow.
That's what's happening. So we're getting screwed. We get told Wall Street is up. Yeah, it was up during Obama's administration, the last part of the Bush administration, but the people were down. And what that reflects is what really hit crunch time during the Reagan administration. The wedge, the gap that got so wide between the top end of the heap and the rest of the people. I worked with a DC think tank back in the early 70s as an intern. And one of the things we looked at was the fact that at that time, the CEO of General Motors, Chrysler, Ford, American Motors made roughly 4 or 4.5 times what the highest paid line worker made. Now they make 4,000 or 5,000 times as much. Oh. And they don't do anything because they aren't interested in the company so much, which used to be, sacred.
Right. Building
They'll
families.
Destroy the company to become rich themselves.
Exactly.
So there's a difference. Now what you have is 3% of the country's population controls 95% of the wealth. Add 2 more percent in terms of heirs, trust fund babies, and all that other stuff, and you have a situation where 5% of the country splits 95% of the wealth.
Wow.
What happens is the remaining 95% of the country just gets to share 5% of the nation's wealth. See, I lived in Aspen, Colorado for about 10 years, and I hobnobbed with billionaires, multimillionaires up there. And what they do is not what we do. I had it, but, the ex got a whole lot of it during this divorce I went through in California for 4 years. I ain't gonna lie, it's cheaper to keep it. But anyway, can you imagine where you walk into an upscale place and you don't have to ask what something costs?
Right.
Your wife says, I want that, all right. Take it up for her. When you find out this Gucci bag was $14,000.
Holy smack.
Damn, it's plastic.
$14,000 worth, though.
I kid you not. And you got a credit card in your pocket that if you put it up, they don't even do anything but just to verify it's you. And you can charge up to $650,000 right there, $750,000 from it, no questions asked.
Most people only dream.
You can buy a house most people would die for with your credit card.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Just charge it.
Just charge it. See, people don't understand. And that's 3% of the country controlling 95% of its wealth, and with their little in crowd, 5% of the country getting to spend or save or invest 95% of the country's income. And all of the 95% of the 320 million people left over, they get to split just 5% of the country's wealth.
When you break it down like that, Judge, then it's so easy to understand why Black people have only traditionally had like 0.5% of this nation's wealth. Because it's already taken up. It's already taken up by all these greedy fools. And I shouldn't call them fools. They're just doing what they can do. We're allowed to get over by the government and other institutions. But what's our excuse, Judge? What's our excuse for not knowing this economic calamity that has collectively befallen all of us? What is our excuse?
Okay. Well, it's because in one sense, us, second sense, the legacy of slavery, where the mother learned from the grandmother, learned from the great-grandmother, learned from the great-great-grandmother, and what they are passed down is a tradition from slavery. It's got to do with what they call acculturation. One of the things, for example, that they found when they were releasing some wolves that they had bred in captivity back into the wild, or chimpanzees, or even gorillas, is they can't just turn the animal loose once he gets to that age where he's supposed to be able to fend for himself, because he hasn't been part of the culture that has adapted to his wild environment. He can't make it. He's dependent upon his human captors. So they have to go through a process of getting this animal partially trained so he can get back into the wild. And it depends on other animals who are acculturated to the wild to train this newbie. And that's just with us. We have a situation where there is a wild environment. The jungle is the city. The jungle for thousands of years has been civilization. And if you can't fit into the civilization, you can't make it. And by making it, I mean, you don't have to have a keeper who pays for your food, pays for your clothes, pays for your shelter. You can go out and earn your clothes, you can earn your food, you can earn where you stay. When I had my show, I'd have this continuous series of cases that got interesting because of the tragedy it revealed. The landlord is telling me that, and this isn't just one, but the landlord typically has a situation where he has invested, saved, and strength, and now he bought several blocks of housing, rentable housing,
Okay.
and they're good houses, not houses, apartments, and he's taken out an enormous loan to fix them up, renovate them, or even build new construction, let's say. And he's not one of the big landlords. Let's say he's got one apartment building, maybe two, and he's fixed them up so they're good quality. He's renting the apartments out for $2,800 a month. Well, the city has passed an ordinance that says so many units have to be Section 8. All right?
Oh, man.
So he's got some nice middle-class people that have moved in here, but he's got one Section 8 family in that apartment complex. And the Section 8 person pays maybe $7 or $17 out of his own pocket, or her own pocket usually, toward the $2,800 a month rent, right?
Right.
Now the problems start. They bring in furniture that's got roaches in it, so there's a continuous need to bring in an exterminator to take this insect-free building and keep the roaches that have bred into furniture and other stuff brought in by this Section 8 Act. There is a problem with the children. Nobody teaches them how to wipe their behind, so plumbing starts backing up, and the plumbers tell the landlord, what the hell is going on? I found 9 feet of compacted toilet paper in the line that led back to this apartment, and it blocked everybody else. All right? Brand new refrigerator, stove, washing machine, dryer, and it's trash, filthy, and unusable within 11 months because the people don't know how to take care of it. They have a common basement for everybody, but these fools have managed to flood the basement because somebody said, okay, I don't want this going up because I want to steam something down here, so I disconnected the bloody damn hot water line so I can steam my clothes instead of taking them to the cleaner. What the hell's wrong with you? So everybody else in the building suffers, okay? So you see this over and over again. What's wrong with you?
Man, it's a lack. It's almost like selfishness. I'm just going to do it my way, Judge.
And it doesn't stop there. One of the most interesting cases I had was this woman, this man and his wife suffered $15,000 worth of damage to their home.
Wow.
From vandalism. Let me tell you how that developed. there was this student, good-looking guy, and he lived in this student house. On the other side of the 9-foot-high chain link fence was some low-income house. In this low-income housing was this woman who had 8 kids by 8 different baby daddies. She saw this guy going to school every day. He was a grad student, and she decided she wanted to have a baby by him. Well,
paycheck.
He never. Wait. I'll fast forward on this. You know when he first laid eyes on this woman?
When?
And she admitted it. Was in court in front of me. Well, in front of the arbitration proceeding in front of me. On camera. He never laid eyes on her. So she recruited her friend girls, 4 of them, 3 of them, to assist her on getting next to this guy. Well, she started noticing this movie star quality sister that started hanging with this guy. They moved in together. They got married. She had a master's of business administration, and he was a lawyer now. So these Section 8 chicks, they were going to screw up her face and mutilate her so he wouldn't be interested in her.
How petty.
Now, they couldn't find him, but they followed him one day when he went over to his aunt and uncle's house, okay? That's where the $15,000 damage came in. They couldn't find where he and his new wife had moved to, so they came over and vandalized his uncle's house to get back at him, and he'd never even met them.
That's creepy.
I know it's creepy, but that's the kind of crazy, sick, whacked out thought process we've got going around in our neighborhoods.
Now, would they ever allow the Section 8 people to be in Beverly Hills or Rancho Santa Fe?
Hell no.
So it's almost like, not to be
the
ignorant.
middle class gets stuck with it. But I tell you what they're doing right here in the place I live in. The cheapest house on the street I'm on is about $1 million something. All right.
Wow.
And it goes up. So there's only one way into where I am. Well, there was some property that somebody acquired an interest to, and by the zoning ordinances in effect, he could put 2 houses on them of a minimum 5,000 square feet, right?
Right.
Well, he bought another lot that he came up with a deal on. Somebody died, and it allowed 2 houses. So what he did is he paid $18,000 for his construction firm to each of the city aldermen in Germantown, Tennessee, who voted for this zoning exception. He also got them to agree without an environmental impact, and it's displaced a herd of deer. And any time in the evening before it's dark, I can look out in my backyard and I got 4 to 10 deer out there eating up the flowers because they moved over where I am. All right. So they're building a middle school. In the Germantown system, there are not enough people to be in the middle school. There aren't enough students. So they're using the middle school to be a draw for the people that they want to fill this moderate to low income housing development up with, who have been displaced by gentrification in downtown and midtown Memphis. So he wants to bring them out here. That will bust up the neighborhood. These people will sell the houses, and they're already street sign, sale sign going up. And then you bust this place down to something else. Now, the son or the grandson will get it in 25 years, and what he'll do is re-gentrify the place because the location hasn't changed,
right,
and run all of these people out of here and then start making a killing because daddy or granddaddy let him have this stuff that he got for cheap because he busted up the neighborhood.
Talk about land speculation.
Exactly.
My God. And this is, everybody knows the play. And it seems like this should be criminal. It should be illegal.
It ought to be.
It's worse than insider trading.
Campaign contribution in this state, if you declare it as income and pay taxes on it, is legal.
Wow.
So guess what they pay these people to be city aldermen? They're part-timers, so they get $23,000 a year that they got to spend $150,000 to get elected to a position. And then here's somebody putting an $18,000 deposit in your account that you can turn into something you can spend because you don't need it to campaign with. All you got to do is declare pay taxes on it.
That's crazy. That's legal bribery.
Of course it is.
But you can't say that because you'll hurt people's feelings, especially in the political
yeah,
world.
I know. Although they forget one thing, the law still is as it is, and there's a case called New York Times versus Sullivan, 1962, that says they cannot get you for defamation of character if you're talking about a public official or somebody before the public's eye, such as a celebrity, unless what you say is totally and maliciously misleading,
right,
or untrue, knowing it to be untrue. And that doesn't include comments on your opinion about the person, only on facts.
You know.
So you can say he's allegedly gay, but you can say he acts like a gay ML.
Right. And that's totally fine. You know, think about this. We had Jeffrey Epstein. And right before, you know, he kills himself, apparently. Just think of all the names he could have named as far as participating in his debauchery on the island. But no one ever puts two and two together that, you know, who benefits from this? Well, all the people in the shadows. Just like...
Well, look at this. Do you remember The Godfather? I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's fine.
The point you make. Remember The Godfather?
Yeah, I remember all three movies.
Okay, remember in the first one where they wanted to get the Frank Sinatra to stand in, made a star, so the Godfather sent his boys out there to deal with it.
Yes.
And they were scoping on the director who was being resistant. Right. So they were out there one morning, and this little girl actress came hobbling out with her mother holding her by the arm because she had slept with the director, and they wound up putting his racehorse's head in the bed with it.
Yes.
Okay, that's what that was about. That was a takeoff on, allegedly, Shirley Temple, who became Shirley Temple Black, who became a U.S. ambassador to an African country. So there is this thing. Do you know what they called the first series of movies back in the 30s that Shirley Temple was in?
No, what?
They were called kitty porn.
No.
That was the title for the stuff. So kitty porn featured Shirley Temple in these little short dresses with her bare legs, and she would always be sitting on some old guy's lap playing with him and bending over so her panties would show.
That's disgusting.
And she even said something about it later in life. So pedophilia is a long-standing disease in Hollywood.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It has everything to do with the corruption of the innocent, or at least presumed innocent, the child. You know,
yeah. It's crazy.
But people are rewarded, Judge. No, the good pedophiles are all rewarded, it seems like.
Yeah, but you see, one of the dangers of Hollywood is it's an industry doing what?
Selling a lie. Well, selling hope. That's what they do. They sell hope in many ways.
Well, in other words, they take fiction for the most part.
Right.
And they want you to accept it as reality. And they've got a bunch of people who are damn good at that. Yes, so they live in a real world. You know, most people have ambitions to do something that has a real world impact or to make a difference.
Right.
They're out there, oh my God, I always wanted to do this. And what did they want to do? Like milk yogurt. You wanted to play a part. He wanted to pretend, and his whole career is based on a pretend thing.
It is.
So these people are used to folk deferring to them because they're celebrities or they're powerful within an industry that promotes make-believe, which is, if you make believe, you also have license to deviate from the norm.
Yeah,
all right?
There it is.
They
right.
deviate way from the norm, and they like each other, and they like children, but they like to bend the children over and sodomize them or rape them.
Mm.
And the child may be voluntarily going along with it, but in the law, that's what statutory rape is about. The child is too young to consent knowingly of what they're doing.
Correct.
So one of the things was, you did not want old guys screwing girls that were too young because they'd get knocked up. But when it gets down to you can't knock them up because they're the same sex, you see, the reason for the law is why you have the law. When the reason for the law ceases to exist, then the application of the law ceases. So if the reason for the law is construed to be you don't want these little girls getting knocked up when they're too young to be mothers, when that can't happen, then you say, oh, we get away from the rules of pedophilia. But no, see, it's still back to sexual consent, and part of that whole, what was it, the Gay Manifesto of 1972 for state action, the part of it. Number 5 is to remove age as a consent factor in sexual relations.
That's sick. That is sick.
And that's what Hollywood's doing because so many of them do it. See, the equivalent would be if black folk took over the Hollywood industry 50 years ago, and some of us weren't the handkerchief-head house Negroes that some of us are. Think of what could have been done to have normalized black-white relations in this country.
Yes. This acting normal, no extra jive, none of that, just being a normal person and having normal interactions.
But the Skittles have controlled it. So they're normalizing this thing of taste the rainbow.
Mm-hmm. That's such an atrocious image every time you say that phrase. Taste the rainbow. I just see Cory
This
Booker.
dude out there pulling on the bottom parts of a giraffe to get Skittles into a bucket, and he's tasting the Skittles and cramming them into his mouth, and he's grinning with all of that goo all over his teeth.
Yeah.
Taste the rainbow. And when they made that commercial, you know what everybody associated the rainbow with? And then, see, they co-opted that because Jesse Jackson, when he ran for president twice,
Coalition.
he had the Rainbow Coalition, so they co-opted that. And by the way, you know who raised all this money for?
Who?
Donald Trump.
Wow. Everything's so connected.
And by the way, have you seen this stuff where George W. Bush and Michelle Obama are giggling at each other and he's giving her candy?
Yeah.
You know what that's about?
What?
He's giving her the same kind of candy he used to give her husband, Barack Obama, heretofore known as Barry Soetoro, when that individual was a child and used to come regularly to visit the Bush home.
Wow, that's right, because his daddy, Mr. S.S. Gestapo, well, not that, the Asian version of it. And
his daddy, Lolo Soetoro, ran the death squads for the Indonesian army before he became the oil tycoon.
Yeah, that's crazy.
George Herbert Walker Bush was head of the CIA under the Jerry Ford administration.
So, next
Barack Obama's mother worked for a CIA front organization, and his grandmother is now acknowledged as having, in her position as a bank vice president in Hawaii, handled the distribution of CIA funds to the Southwest Pacific, where Lolo Soetoro, Barack's stepdaddy / adopted daddy, ran the hit squads to do the contract killing for the CIA.
Wow.
And I saw a photo in 2006 or 7 before this stuff even started getting big. There's Lolo Sotoro with a golf club, George Herbert Walker Bush with a golf club standing next to a golf cart. Right behind him, sitting in another golf cart, is George W. Bush with his arm around about a 7 or 8-year-old boy. Guess who?
Oh, Barry.
Barry Sotoro, soon to be known as Barack Obama.
Man, we cannot make this up. If we were watching what you just said in a movie, we would probably be walking out there. This is so retarded. These people can't see. It's like Superman. You can't tell he's Superman just because he has on glasses. You know, it's like when you start looking at all this history and you understand Obama wasn't shutting down the Gulf War, nor was Bush. You know the reason why? Because they're making money on the back end through the oil.
So, this out. Barack Obama, a.k.a. Barry Sotoro, has a trust fund in Indonesia. It made him effectively the richest man ever to sit in the White House. Last year, this year, Business Insider reported he had a $320 million extra income over 2017, which was reported at over $200 million net.
Wow.
Now, nobody on that bracket level reports that much money unless they are big duckets. You know, tax deductions and everything, so you don't pay taxes. You got a net income. Business Insider, which is one of the more reliable business-oriented publications, reports you as over 200 million net.
Wow.
Not gross, but net after taxes, expenses, everything else, tax deductions, write-offs. And then the next year, on top of that, $320-some million on top of it. Net. Trump doesn't bring that kind of ducats in net. By the way, you know he has not accepted a single paycheck.
No, yeah, that's what he said in the beginning. He wasn't going to take that. 250,000.
They talk about Air Force One, but they got to fly Air Force One 2 or 3 times every week or so the crew can stay in training. Right. They got to fly it, so he might as well get on it to go someplace where he's paying the tab for the hotel accommodation.
It's crazy.
So they want to talk about all the cost and expense of flying Trump around. Well, hell, Obama played a lot of golf. So did George W. So did Bill Clinton. So did George Herbert Walker. And St. Ronald Reagan. You know, he traveled all over the world.
Yep.
So who's paying the tab? And every chance Eisenhower got, he was on a golf course.
You know, that's the thing about it. You know, not only, like you mentioned, Bush and Obama, not only were their buddies like that through probably the CIA connection, because Bush, the father, senior, was the CIA director, but they were also related by blood as well. And I find it strangely coincidental, Judge, at that time, 350 U.S. citizens. The only people we could get elected are people who are genetically related by blood. Whether we are aware of it or not is irrelevant. The fact is they have the same blood in them. What is the chances of that just being coincidence?
Very little.
Exactly. We have to recognize this is a part of a greater scheme, a bigger plan, as it were. But I think we can start to see that the conclusion of this plan, a lot of people aren't going to be involved. A lot of people are going to be, quite frankly, left behind. You know, as we go farther.
This country is switching over to a class system that Europe got away from.
Right.
And this class system is not based on being a landholder in a baron someplace. It's based on investments and the ability to control what happens to the investment. Wow. So that is what the basis for this new caste system. That's what it's all about. And these people are getting filthy rich, and the rest of us are screwed. Why is it that third-rate little countries have a better deal when it comes to health care than we do? My ex-mother-in-law is a Canadian citizen. She's retired now. She was an RN in San Francisco. She's been here, oh, God, 58 years, and she's a permanent resident. And by the way, they ask her all the time if she's a citizen on her census, and they've asked me all but one in the 50 years that I've been an adult.
Yep.
Was I a citizen? I don't understand what that's. Well, I do understand, but she always answered, yeah, I am long-term permanent resident alien. But she had benefits. Do you know that even though she lived in America, she never had to pay a doctor's bill, never had to pay pharmaceuticals, because even though they weren't being sent for Canada, the Canadian government took care of them.
Wow.
And here we are, la-di-da, going broke.
By design, Judge, by design. It's not coincidence. It almost has to be broken. This country seems like it has to be broken. Maybe it's the Skittle agenda or the communist agenda, but someone has a big fat hard on for the United States of America, and they're working old girl to the ground.
Well, I don't think it's so much that as it is, it's an opportunity for certain people to get filthy rich and to insulate their offspring from the consequences of the ordinary economy. Now, that is what I think is actually going on.
Wow. Wow.
So there was a club that I belonged to in Aspen. To join, it cost you $150,000 if you had a certain status, $250,000 if you didn't. Well, the club was cool. I also found out something else. Rich white folk can dance. The young ones can dance as well as black folk.
When you're money and paid,
throw down. Now, tell you a story. When I first started coming in and exercising my membership privileges, they didn't know me from Sam. So it was one New Year's Eve thing, and I'm sitting in there, and I've got my wife and one of her friend girls, her hairdresser, as a matter of fact, and the hairdresser, she flew the hairdresser out there so the hairdresser could do her hair. Hairdresser had a salon on the intersection of Wilshire Boulevard and Rodeo, which is about as upscale as it gets. So my wife's white friends were paying her $5,000 a piece to come out there and do their hair. Okay? So the three of us are sitting at this table for New Year, and the waiter was trying to tell us, look, this table is spoken to. I'm sorry, but you'll have to vacate it. I said, okay. Then bring me my check. So he brought me my check, and I put his tip in there. So he said, well, sir, you got 5 minutes. I think I'll look at your tip when you get back there. He rushed out. He said, look, they can go screw themselves. If you got the table all goddamn night long. You know what I did?
What's that?
I left him $1,000 tip.
Oh, wow.
Now, you know how that carried over?
How's that?
Some months later, some idiot got mad and wanted to throw a drink on my wife because he was pushing people out of the way. And my wife's an athletic woman. She's 5'7", 5'8". She shoved him back.
Yeah.
So when I jumped up getting ready to do it, here's what management told me. Judge, you know, it's a very interesting conversation we're having on the third floor right now about what's going on with this particular project with the youth? Oh, yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? In other words, if I jack your ass up, I ain't here. And the management saying, the judge was upstairs talking to us. Now, you know, these rich white folk will fight.
Oh, yeah.
The poor ones will fight, but the ones in the middle, especially the Skittles bunch, they're afraid. So anyway, back to deal down. But you see, anytime I walked in there after I made this investment over the next 10 years, when I went to the bar, they had my special liquor reserved for me, even if I hadn't been in there in a month. They just brought it out. They didn't pour it. I could pour it.
Wow.
See, that's what it gets you. Now, I was in Chicago one time, and there was a certain somebody that played for the Bulls, not Michael Jordan. But he was notorious with the limo drivers for only doing lame stuff like tipping $1.
Oh.
And he said, I ain't tipping nobody. I got to keep my money. Yeah, but you see, and they don't treat me right. Well, that's why they don't treat you right.
You know it. It went through like wildfire. He's cheap, y'all.
Well, I'm a celebrity. You only treated as a celebrity if you act like one.
Exactly. That means you got to pass the cash.
Man gets in here on a conference and he is not going to tip somebody just $1. He'd be embarrassed.
Yeah. If you're going to do that, it's almost better not to give a tip at all.
And say, you know, the team's taking care of it.
Yeah. Or say I left my wallet at home or something, you know.
Or
give a guy an autograph. You know, shit, I left my wallet at home. Lie, it's in your breast pocket. But, you know, write something down on a piece of paper and give it to dude. Or just be real with it.
Well, the other thing is, too, noblesse no oblige. That's a French proverb. If nobility has its obligation. So you're making big money. You kind of sort of owe, you know, to spread it around.
Right. Money's water. You just got to get in a stream and get yours, but you can't dam it up and let it backlog because people downstream is going to be hurting. But isn't that the basics of trickle-down economy? Like what we've been living under ever since basically Reagan's years? The rich will produce jobs magically, but it hasn't been that way. And I guess ultimately what I'm asking, how do we get this situation back? Is it purely a political thing, or do we got to?
Well, you get it back by taking it back. And how do you take it back? You counter the propaganda. As the Nazis say, the truth is the absolute enemy of the lie.
Oh, yes.
And what we're doing right now is part of that process. See, too many people don't want to rock the boat because they're too punk ass to understand that, they're like John Wick, there are consequences.
Mm-hmm. There is.
But they don't want to deal with them because they're scared of them. So what has to happen is, while we whoopie-doo, you want to get through, you got to change what happens and what you do.
Yes.
It's a rhyme, but, you know, it is what it is.
But we're not changing what we do for the most part. You know, I mean, how many people, it got me this far, I'll just keep on keeping on. But it's really killing them.
And they don't speak out.
No, they don't.
Nobody speaks out about it.
Like you said, they're scared. You know, Judge, I just got this position at the firm, and if I was to bring up these harsh economic or social realities, you know, that they could kick me out. You know, people are scared. Okay.
Let me tell you a story. I went to Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota, and it's probably got more normalized race relations than any other big city in America. So I'm a guest up there to speak at this banquet that the black lawyers had. Well, to make a long story short, they told me that they had wished they had accepted Dick Cheney's invitation to come back and speak to them because they thought they would get more out of Vice President Dick Cheney. Now, in context, afterwards, I look at this spectacle. There is this black lawyer, a colored lawyer, with his Jewish boss, who was a senior partner in the firm he was in. And the senior partner was going, Tommy, you need to shake the judge's hand. I don't want to, JT. I don't like what he had to say. Well, Tommy, there's nothing wrong with supporting your race. All of us at the top, we all support Jewish causes. It's okay to support black causes. We expect that. But I don't want to, JT. Tommy, it's okay. I mean, shake the judge's hands. He said some things that are important to your people, but I don't like it, babe. This is a conversation going on within 10 feet of me. I can hear it.
Wow, this dude was that wormy. He was that weaselly.
That wormy. Now, see, that's future leadership. So the other thing we need to learn, we keep talking about entrepreneurialism and we got to get some land. And you can't do that. See, there's a book, it's called From the Beginning. Humans. I reread it. First time I read it was in 2014, and they've already got a second edition to upgrade the research. Very heavyweight book, and they're going through the various human early civilizations, early developments, and early culture. One thing that stands out is trade and concourse between various groups. Before the Ice Age ended, humans are trading with each other. It becomes a manifest necessity. So here we are talking about we're going into isolation. This late remove from the point where trade became an imperative with humans 30,000, 40,000 years ago. What's wrong with us? Do we even know what we're talking about? And you know what the other thing is? What are you talking about doing when you start talking about black enterprise? You start talking about you want to sell or do stuff that's already in the market, where a lot of people are already doing it. And we don't have the economies of scale going for us where we can get the price down. We were talking about running these businesses. There is a high rate of theft and other stuff that drives the cost up, high insurance costs, and some other realities. What we lack is this. To make it now, you have to have something new and different.
Yes.
That requires that you get into STEM. You know what STEM is? Yeah. STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. All of the dot-com revolution, all of somebody comes in, the new company that makes $1 billion dollars in the first few years, they've got something new. And in order to have something new, we have to have people who are well-grounded in science, technology, engineering, and math. Right. We have a few, but we don't have enough. And they've got to invent stuff, new things, new processes, new concepts that can be sold and make it big. We're just talking about doing mundane mom and pop stuff, or rap, or entertainment, or get into the Hollywood thing, which would be interesting, except the people trying to do that are just caught up in the same old being house Negroes. We have too much of the mindset of the plantation. And part of what's wrong with the inner cities in America is not some of the cities that, like Memphis, where we are not the minority anymore. Is that there's still nothing but plantations, but the problem is that the Negroes have no crops to pick, and the so-called leadership is trying to be an overseer on a plantation with no crop.
Right.
And then, you know, we can't get into the STEM because, man, teach ain't on my agenda, man. I ain't got time for that, man. You know, lost your mind.
That mind, that's self-delusion. That is so self-deluded. So such fairy tale thinking.
They're looking at this poison that glorifies dysfunction. They want to be hip-hop.
A gangster, a drug dealer.
And you see the divide and conquer thing. Remember this series Blackish they've got?
Yes, I've heard of it.
Stupid sitcom, but some find it interesting. Have you seen the advertisements for the new show soon to start?
Mixed-ish.
It's called Mixed-ish.
Right. I saw that.
So they want to distinguish between black folk and those who are mixed. Hell, by definition, since day one, you got any of us in you, that's what you are.
You're black. Yeah, the one drop. Or actual evolution. Everybody comes from Africa 3 million years ago. Lucy.
Yeah, all that stuff, and the average white person has a high percentage of African genes in them in America because folk have been passed. But I mean, when did it become a concept? You know, I was in D.C. with this think tank thing, and I went over to Howard University. My old man graduated from there at the end of the 40s. Went to law school there too. So I looked at this place he told me to go check out. He was still alive then. I went by there. It was, I describe it as a grill or open pub or something. But they had all these murals in there. If a girl gets to Howard, you know, she goes through being a freshman. It's all along one wall. She meets this handsome guy. They graduate. They get married. They start a family.
Oh,
but over in the corner, he told me to look at something, and they had stenciled on the wall, if you're white, you're all right. If you're yellow, you're mellow. If you're brown, stick around. If you're black, you get back. Get back. So that was from way back when, and now here we are going back that way again. Mixed-ish? What kind of sick puppy on that rainbow Skittle side invented that show?
It's messed up. But it goes back to dysfunction. It goes back to diluting the mind. It goes back to polluting the mind, more importantly. Because at the end of the day, what's the difference between, say, shows like Dennis the Menace or Leave It to Beaver versus Empire, Blackish Mixes? What's the difference? What does the viewer get out of it? One, you get a sense of community, even though it was distorted, totally homogeneous, or one group of people. And with the other one, you get what? A fantasy, a distortion of reality. Because the reality, most drug dealers, most gangbangers do not make it the long term. They don't make a career out of it. They're either shot in the street, they're either killed by their own product, or else they go before someone like Judge Joe and they're sent away for a very long time. Sometimes
or on the other hand, the bad side, they get pardoned by President Trump after Slut Kardashian goes in there. And she became suddenly overnight an expert on sentencing and prison reform. And Johnson, the lady, is from Memphis, and I had six first-degree murder trials, death penalty demanded, where she's supposed to have been the person that took the contract out. But because they couldn't get the person who was the intermediary to say anything, and they couldn't try him because he shut his mouth, demanded a lawyer, and the rest of the fools sang their ass off. And under American law, at least in Tennessee, you can't prosecute somebody on the uncorroborated statements of accomplices. So we have the drug queenpin that was the intermediary between the Colombian drug cartels versus the Mexican ones here in Memphis, who was supplying the crack and the coke from New Orleans up to Louisville, up to Chicago, up to St. Louis, up to Kansas City. Man. Now, remember Kim was talking about, well, she was just a poor grandmother who was trying to save her house and she got caught with one small bag of coke. Do you know what Wikipedia was saying when they were carrying that case over the years? When they busted her, it was the third largest cocaine bust in American history. This woman had 6,600 pounds of 97% pure cocaine that could have been cut into between 18,000 and 24,000 pounds. That's between 9 and 12 tons of first-rate coke on the surface. she was in possession of $87 million in cash.
Oh, Granny wasn't playing.
And that was one grandmother trying to save her house with a small bag of cocaine, and she should be let out. They had all of these people they put in the witness protection program, all of these people that copped out for a deal with a 10-year cap on it, and she and her chief lieutenant got life, and now her lieutenant is doing his life sentence, but she's out on the streets, and people are looking for her out here.
I'm sure they are.
Because all of these crack babies,
yes,
all of these crackheads that were poisoning our communities in the late 80s, early 90s, that was her.
Wow, Judge.
But she's out of jail now. I mean, man, look at it, man. Think of all the millions that they didn't get, man. She just did some time, man. She wasn't a grandmother when she went in. She was 36 years old.
Man, I'm just thinking of all the pain.
That's what we go for.
Wow.
See, so now, how can I tell somebody crime doesn't pay?
You can't, not with a straight face.
Yeah, or Kamala Harris did this. She blocked the prosecution of this woman I was a victim to. She had held herself out as a financial advisor. And what happened was she wound up embezzling $12.5 million from myself and a bunch of celebrities, some Dodger players, Lakers, and all that other stuff. They let her cop out to embezzling $250,000, and her sentence was 5 years with 4.5 years suspended, 5 years probation. Well, she showed up and she was supposed to make $50,000 worth of restitution. Well, she's made no restitution to anybody. The case took almost 5 years to resolve. And Camilla brought herself in from the from the California Attorney General's position to give her some relief. The woman had seduced her female lawyer. And check this out. What goes on is that la-di-da-di-dee, Missy sits on a bench outside the women's detention center for 5.5 hours. They tell her to go home. That's time served. So she sat on a bench for 5.5 hours and got $12.5 million. What am I going to tell somebody about crime doesn't pay?
Oh my God. Oh my God. But we have to also clarify, this is only one segment of society that are playing games like this, right?
Well, all of the victims were black. And guess what? See, it got even further. You heard of Suge Knight, right?
Right.
She and one of Suge Knight's girlfriends were close buddies. So here's what she did. There was a black all-pro football player who set up a nice restaurant in L.A. He's married, beautiful wife. She set up a boutique over there in Beverly Hills right down from the place. So this woman that does the embezzlement, she had one little scam she did to cover her tracks. She had to make the couple have marital difficulties, and in the process of getting a divorce, all of the stuff would go away. You'd get caught up in the confusion. So she convinced this woman that her husband, who was totally innocent, was up to no good. So one of Suge Knight's girlfriends got angry when she found out that to retaliate, this woman started having an affair, allegedly, with Suge Knight. She had broken up with her husband because of the false information. Well, one of Suge Knight's girlfriends got angry and apparently machine gunned her boutique.
Damn.
And things went south from there. So that's how this person rolled. So he gets caught up in all kinds of stuff, allegedly.
Dang, this is crazy.
Of course it's crazy.
Dysfunctional to the hilt.
is insane.
Well, Judge, we have to shut her down. I do appreciate your time, but you have anything else to add?
No, I mean, I wasn't supposed to be on but 15 minutes.
I know.
You know me, I'll get a roll going. An old man got to preach.
And we need to listen. This is
I'm no Baptist minister, but you know how they do with them. Y'all gone on for a while. Take the time, preach. Take the time, keep going. I still got some more words this morning. You know, well, I apologize for that, but here's what it is.
It is what it is. It's good though. I love it because these shows are giving knowledge to those young men and women that really need it. They need to hear this. They need to, and us older folks too as well. We're never too old to grow psychologically, folks.
Nope.
Well, we
need it.
We do, exactly. Well, thank you, Judge. And we'll be
all right, sir. Have a great evening. Afternoon.
Yeah, we start in the morning, we end in the afternoon.
There you go. Ciao.
Ciao. Yes, y'all. This has been an exciting day for the show. 3 powerful shows back to back. As always, live your life with integrity. Without hate, envy, or greed. Brothers and sisters, let's try to be kinder to each other. Peace, love, power, unity, victory, liberation. I'm out.